Steph, you're gonna get better. You know that I'm with you, okay? I'll send you lots of light. Know that I love you. You know, I'm with you, man. I'm with you, okay? And I love you a lot.
I have been fascinated by the medical medium for years. It was 2019 when I was approached by a coworker of mine. I had just suffered 2 devastating pregnancy losses, and this coworker decided to step in and help me. She sent me screenshots from an ebook written by this man, Anthony William, more commonly known as the medical medium. And these screenshots basically said that in order to prevent me from having any more miscarriages, I needed to drink celery juice. And lots of it. Our workplace was right next to a major grocery store chain, so this coworker would go after work like every single day and just buy up all the celery she could find. And I remember her telling me at one point that like so many people were in on this medical medium guy that there's celery shortages. You can't even find it anywhere. That supposedly was a thing for a minute there. And I know this coworker of mine meant well, she had good intentions, but I was so offended that it seemed like these pages that she had sent me from this ebook were blaming me for my devastating losses. And maybe I would have those babies now if I was just drinking celery juice every day. As soon as I read this stuff, I knew the dude was a quack. What I didn't consider, however, is how deadly his advice could truly be. Because in 2018, a woman named Stephanie Tisone died from breast cancer after following Anthony William and his strict diet that claimed to be able to cure that cancer. For the record, I've seen her name be pronounced Tisone and Tisone. They say Tisone in Medical Medium's podcast about her, so that's what I'm going with. But I don't know, there are like other sources that just call her Stephanie Tisone. I don't know, I might be pronouncing it wrong, it's really hard for me to know. But anyway, today we're gonna discuss the ridiculousness of Anthony William, aka the medical medium, and how he allegedly caused the death of a 38-year-old woman. Before we get into all of that though, I just want to thank the sponsor of today's video, Lumi. Listen, I understand the skepticism that a lot of people have about aluminum-free deodorants. I stayed away from them because the internet told me that they didn't work. And as a native to the fantastic but also boiling hot Sonoran Desert, we're all stinky out here. So I always thought I needed something more than an aluminum-free deodorant could offer me. Well, I'm here to tell you that the moment I used Lumi, the moment I put it under my pits, I fell in love. And yes, it does work. With 120-degree temperatures quickly approaching the Phoenix metro area, I can at least mark off body odor from my list of summertime concerns. First of all, Lumi was invented by a woman who also happens to be an OBGYN. She's the current CEO of the company. Woman-owned businesses, we love to see it. But since she's an OBGYN, she knows her stuff about pH balances. Lumi's products are whole body deodorants. Yeah, it's not just for your pits anymore. Under boob stank? Forget about it. Stinkiness from below the belt? Forget about it. Maybe even foot stank? Forget about it! Since it's pH balanced to use anywhere on your body, you really can use it anywhere. It's skin safe, aluminum free, baking soda free, cruelty free, paraben free, and it's also vegan. It's not gonna stain your clothes either. It works by stopping odor before it even starts, and it can be effective for up to 72 hours. Now, I was sent the toasted coconut scent, which if you're into like warm and cozy scents, this would be right up your alley. If you're not, they have a bunch of other scents to choose from, such as minted cucumber, soft powder, clean tangerine, which is the body wash that they sent me. Probably my new favorite body wash ever. It smells really good. I love the clean tangerine smell, but it's also super sudsy and nice. I like it. And then they also have lavender sage, which is what they sent me in their invisible cream deodorant. I think this one's my favorite because it's not like that fake lavender scent, you know. You just use a little pea-sized amount. It turns invisible when you put it on wherever. And then they also have peony rose, fresh alpine, and even an unscented version too. The stick formula goes on so easy, so smooth, so clear. They also sent me a pack of their acidified deodorant wipes in the cool cucumber scent. This is so convenient for on-the-go odor control. And I don't know if other companies make something like this, but I love the idea of it. I'm just glad to know that this exists exists now. So easy to just put in your bag and apply to stinky areas while you're out and about. Lumi's starter pack is perfect for new customers, and you can try these products for 30% off plus free shipping. So it includes the full-size stick of deodorant, a tube of their cream deodorant, and then 2 free products. So they sent me the body wash and the on-the-go wipes. But on top of that starter pack deal, they're also giving my audience an additional $5 off their starter pack. All you have to do is click my personal link down below and then use the code SAV5 at checkout. Altogether, the starter pack deal is more than 40% off of regular priced individual products. So it's a really great deal. I mean, try Lumi, dude, seriously. If you've ever been skeptical about aluminum-free deodorant like I have been up until this point in my life, let Lumi change your mind, just like it did for me. Thanks again, Lumi, for sponsoring this video. Now let's talk about the medical medium. First off, I do want to say that the medical medium, aka Anthony William, has an extremely dedicated fan base. I would be willing to guarantee that they will be showing up in today's video's comment section. Look out for them down there. Hi guys, thanks for the engagement. But it is my opinion that his followers are wandering dangerously close to the line of cult territory, as it really is a high control group with a charismatic leader. A lot of his followers will dispute this, as cult members often tend to do, but I just want you to know that when I refer to anything in this video as a cult, it's my opinion, because when you compare the medical medium, his platform, his followers, everything about it, to the BITE model, which is a model that's used to determine whether or not an organization is a cult, you'll see a lot of similarities. So yeah, my opinion, as is a lot of this video, you'll be able to tell when I sprinkle in my opinions, trust me. But a lot of this is kind of a he said, she said situation, and it's really hard because one of the parties is no longer here to give their side of the story. So while I want to use this video to, you know, educate people on the situation, you might want to do some more research after you're done watching this video. I don't know, listen to the Medical Medium's full podcast episode about all this, just to hear both sides really and come to your own conclusion. Now, Anthony William is his, I guess, known as name, but his full name is actually Anthony William Coviello, and he has left a path of destruction in his wake. So let's discuss what this guy's all about. Now, this isn't a deep dive. There's so much more to the world of medical medium that I'm going to be presenting in this video. I just want to give you a general idea of what Anthony William's all about. So, of course, he calls himself the medical medium. Yes, medium as in he claims to be able to talk to spirits and angels, that kind of medium. So, right off the bat, we already know that he's a con man, right? Well, to his over 4.6 million Instagram followers, he's a wise man who has a unique connection with what he calls the spirit of compassion. He usually just refers to it as spirit. He says he first connected with it at the age of 4 when Spirit told young Anthony that his grandmother had lung cancer, and sure enough...
Some people laugh at me and they'll be like, he hears a voice. Meanwhile, life-saving information comes from the voice I've been hearing since I'm age 4, constantly. It's not man-made information in these books. It's not man-made anything. It's information I hear from a voice perfectly clear on the outside of my ear, just like someone's talking to you and I can't turn it off. It's always there. I'm like a regular person. I got skin on me that can take a licking and keep on kicking, but I'm a regular person that has to take the information, message it to people, get it into the books, write it word for word. It's not man-made, and that's why everything happens with clarity. Like when people find the information, it's like clarity. If they could get past the fact that it comes from above and not a scientific study.
Now, is there any evidence to back that up? That a very young child was able to correctly diagnose his own sick grandma just with a little help from this tiny little voice speaking in his ear all the time? No, dude, of course not. There's no evidence for basically anything Anthony William ever says. He also claims that he spent his childhood healing family and friends, although no family or friends have ever come forward to be like, yep, I knew Anthony when he was a little kid. Like, from what I understand, people don't even know for sure how old he is. This dude's past is shrouded in mystery. He doesn't talk about it. He doesn't want people to know about it. And part of me thinks that it's because if you start like figuring out where he went to high school, what years he went to high school, and then like start interviewing people from that time, no one's gonna be able to back up his claims. That's just my opinion. But I mean, come on. Claiming that he's spent his whole childhood healing family and friends, it's like he's basically claiming that he's practically Jesus himself. I think this dude dude thinks he's the Messiah. He says that he spent his young adult life studying cooking, nutrition, and herbalism, and what we do know for sure is that he opened a health food store in the year of 2000 with his wife, whose name is Rachel. Now a New York Times best-selling author, Anthony William has published 8 books, regularly appears as a columnist for Goop as a trusted expert.
Well, the candle is called This Smells Like My Vagina.
Yeah, that Goop. He's also been personally consulted by Kim Kardashian, which, as frustrating as it is to admit, only adds to his credibility because for some reason people are still heavily influenced by the Kardashians. I don't know. I don't get it. I've never understood it. Anthony William is one of the biggest names in the alternative medicine industry and also in the pseudoscience and naturopathic world. His follower base is made up mostly of women with chronic pain or health conditions. In an article published to sciencebasedmedicine.org by author Harriet Hall, she says he claims to be able to see all blockages, infections, trouble areas, past problems, and even soul fractures with assistance from Spirit. His website claims that Spirit provides him with advanced healing medical information that's far ahead of its time, basically suggesting that all modern medicine doctors today are just stupid dum-dum heads who don't know what they're talking about because he's the only one who knows the truth. He even claims that real doctors consult him for some of their most perplexing cases, which that in and of itself sounds like it's dangerously close to practicing medicine without a license, which he has been accused of. Yeah, if you haven't guessed it by now, this dude is not a licensed medical professional. He doesn't even have proper medical training. I mean, he really does just come off as like just a normal guy. He even says he's nothing special. He's just like, I don't know, I got this voice in my head all the time, don't know. I'm just a normal dude, never been to med school, no idea.
I'm not a smart guy, and I mean that. Like, I am not that smart of a guy at all. In fact, like, here's the thing. If I don't hear it from a voice, am I a genius? Am I just an incredible genius? No, I'm not. And I can promise everybody I'm not a genius, okay?
He has no credentials at all to be giving people medical advice, yet he does. With all of his success came a lot of criticism. Jennifer Gunter, an OBGYN and a major Goop critic, is quoted as saying, "Promoting the medical medium is no different than promoting anti-vaccine views or cleanses or coffee enemas. The minimum is that people waste money, but there's great potential for harm with many of the therapies that are recommended and delays in diagnosis." That is obviously a valid concern and also a common sentiment amongst critics of the alternative health world. I always see health and wellness MLMs in this way. Like, these are companies like Herbalife, Prove It, Young Living. Yeah, they're money-sucking scams, sure, but it goes so much deeper than that. We've seen these companies, as well as the culture that they perpetuate within them, cause serious bodily harm to people. It happens time and time again. People losing money is honestly the least of our worries when it comes to people like Anthony William. Alongside his many books, he also has some free articles that you can download on his website, and they all basically point to heavy metals and a virus called Epstein-Barr virus as the lead cause of, well, everything. And as someone who has had chronic anxiety for my entire life, I was curious what Anthony claims to be the cause of it. And yep, look at that. Heavy metals and viruses. It couldn't possibly be because I have a chemical imbalance in my brain. No. Anthony says that you can't have chronic anxiety without viruses and heavy metals. And then he says you can cure your anxiety with celery juice, as well as a heavy metal detox smoothie that contains blueberries, spirulina, cilantro, barley grass juice powder, and Atlantic dulse. Whatever that last one is. That must be why I have anxiety. It's because I've never heard of Atlantic dulse. Whoa, excuse me, my bad. Thanks, Anthony. Wow, I'm cured. All of his diets say to stay away from eggs, dairy, corn, soy, gluten, pork, canola oil, caffeine, and nutritional yeast because, you know, that's the stuff that keeps us sick. According to Spirit, of course. And listen, if you go from eating Taco Bell and McDonald's all day, every single day, to a diet of high quality meats and vegetables and fruits, yeah, you're gonna feel better. What Anthony is offering is essentially like eat well, feel well. And it's like, yeah, we know that. Everybody knows that. But he just takes it a step further by saying that by following a healthy diet, you're just gonna cure every ailment that could ever possibly come your way, including cancer. He he has written in his books that medical screening tests like MRIs, CT scans, x-rays, all those things are dangerous because they expose you to unnecessary radiation, and even going so far as to suggest that even entering a hospital is dangerous because those scans are being performed in that building and patients are walking around essentially shedding all of that extra radiation all over the other patients in the lobbies, and oh no, you're just innocently waiting in the waiting room and now you've been exposed to all this dangerous radiation. Oh, get out. I mean, he even says that you can be exposed to dangerous amounts of radiation from airports because when you go through the TSA, they scan your bags, and then he says that you have to throw your luggage out every 3 trips because I guess radiation supposedly just builds up on your luggage and then it becomes a health concern, and yeah, it's wild. For anyone who needs to hear this, this is extreme fear-mongering, and it does not reflect reality accurately. Obviously, we know that radiation's dangerous, okay? Especially if you're being repeatedly exposed to high amounts of it. But suggesting that a medical scan, especially one that's necessary, or, you know, the TSA scans at the airport, like suggesting that those things are going to be making and keeping you sick is just ridiculous. He has built his brand on the mistrust of modern medicine to an extreme and dangerous extent. In case you're wondering, he makes his money by selling his books, of course, but then he has a ton of links on his website that leads to affiliate links, so if you buy any of these things, he gets a cut of your purchase. So while he's not sitting here trying to sell some miracle supplement or something like that, like a lot of these other naturopathic influencers or whatever do, he's still making money off of it, and it's still a very profitable grift for him. A grift that millions of people are unfortunately buying into. One of these millions of people was Stephanie Tisone. For the record, I'm getting most of my information presented here from a Vanity Fair article. Of course, I'll have it linked down below if you want to go and read it all for yourself. It was written in April of 2023 by author Dan Adler. Definitely go check it out if you need more information. But anyway, Stephanie Tisone was a lifelong health nut of sorts who was particularly involved in the community of raw food enthusiasts and falling into the social circles of other new age nuts and conspiracy theorists. She was the prime and target demographic of people who would buy into the medical medium. She found the medical medium in 2013 after she had tested positive for 2 gene mutations that correlate to an increased risk of breast cancer, and since breast cancer actually was running in her family, she decided to book a $400 consultation over the phone with Anthony William after an old friend of hers recommended that she look into the medical medium. During this consultation, Anthony allegedly told her that that gene mutation that supposedly causes breast cancer, he says that that's a fake mutation, it's just totally not even real. As a matter of fact, his website claims that other gene mutations are fake as well. He also told her that heavy metals from vaccines caused her migraines, and that the migraines were fueled by high estrogen levels, and that that Epstein-Barr virus was hiding out in her liver. He then recommended a new dietary regimen for her, including that heavy metal detox smoothie I mentioned earlier, and a heaping side of vitamin B12. As her relationship with Anthony grew, her list of foods that she'd be willing to eat actually started to dwindle. She would eventually cut out nuts, seeds, and avocados as well. Vanity Fair even claims that one of her go-to dinners was 2 heads of lettuce with cayenne pepper and lemon. In 2017, Anthony William published a book called Thyroid Healing, where he wrote that the Epstein-Barr virus is the true case of breast cancer. He claims, incorrectly of course, when EBV is traveling from the liver to the thyroid, the lymphatic system tries to catch it in the chest area, and certain varieties of EBV, when caught here, will form tumors, cysts, or lesions. This is why breast cancer is often not limited to the breast. It also commonly affects the armpits and lymph nodes. It seems like a lot of his work is based off of just the smallest grain of truth, and then he just spins that grain of truth until it goes wild. I'm not a medical professional, I'm not an oncologist or anything like that, so I can't tell you exactly how and why breast cancer exists. But what I can say is that there's no scientific evidence to say that EBV is certainly what causes any and all forms of breast cancer or any other kinds of cancer. Instead, I actually found a study that says they only found EBV present in 27.9% of breast cancer cases. That's that's a pretty strong minority of cases. The evidence isn't certain. It should be studied more, I'll admit. But the very most that anyone can say is that maybe there's a possible link between EBV and some breast cancers. Obviously not all, though. If that one particular study only found EBV in less than 30% of the study participants, then clearly it didn't cause every single case of breast cancer, dude. He also wrote in his Goop column that 98% of the time, cancer is caused by a virus and at least one type of toxin. So he basically means the Epstein-Barr virus and heavy metals. For the record, too, EBV, which, yeah, I'm gonna be calling it that from now on because Epstein-Barr virus is too much to say. Anyway, okay, EBV. It's actually a fairly common form of the herpes virus. It has no cure, but it can regularly present itself in common cold and flu-like symptoms, and then it'll go dormant in your body for years. Certain sources estimate that around 90% of the human population has been infected with EBV. In most cases, the virus is dormant, so they're asymptomatic. In more severe cases, it can cause mononucleosis, but it's rare that it ever does anything worse than that. So to me, in my opinion, it seems like Anthony William found out that there's this virus that a majority of the population of the world has. And so it was kind of an easy scapegoat to be like, oh, well, that's obviously the cause of every issue ever, including just about every kind of cancer that you can think of. And like I was mentioning earlier, there is some scientific evidence to suggest that EBV might be linked to certain kinds of cancer, but for the most part, the CDC, as well as the majority of the medical and nutritional professionals in the world, all deny most of Anthony's claims. Anyway, so Stephanie Tisone ended up befriending Anthony William after some time. She started occasionally working for him as his personal assistant, like when he would travel and go do in-person appearances and stuff. He kept her up to date on how his business was going, how he was exploding on social media, and even celebrating when he made the New York Times bestseller list. Friends of Stephanie say that she was fixated on him. Stephanie was repeating the claim that he was just below God, and she totally and completely believed in Anthony's claims, his abilities. She was a true believer, and she was incredibly devoted to him.
I find that if I'm doing more and more of the correct things, and I'm following his information because he is correct and he knows what he's talking about, and I just trust him with my life, that things are healing and correcting. And just be empowered by it and excited about knowing the truth and being able to take care of yourself the absolute proper way. Because I will assure you, this is the absolute final truth. You don't have to search anymore or read any more books. That's what I've found. And this information is super high. You know, it comes from a high place. His accuracy rate is off the charts. He's never actually been wrong. And it's just such an amazing gift. And so it's just to be able to have that information. You know, you don't want to mess with it too much. You want to take it serious because we don't have time to waste, you know. We have such a short life here and time here, and we want to enjoy our time here and not have to go through any kind of suffering. So I'm just so, like, obviously, you know, I'm, like, super passionate about the information and just so grateful to have it to share with people. The thing you can help yourself with the most, thank God we have a book because, and his teachings and everything he's told me. You want to avoid those foods on that list like the plague.
By his side, she spent time in the homes of celebrities like Demi Moore and Robert De Niro as he was giving them in-person consultations, and then would allegedly convince these people to buy thousands and thousands of dollars worth of supplements, likely from companies that he would get a kickback from if they bought it. So just saying, that's speculation, but come on. The Vanity Fair article reports that after he wrote his first book, he had Stephanie, like, going out to recruit her friends to post rebuttals to Amazon reviews, or like to post positive Amazon reviews, even if they hadn't read the book or been personally consulted by Anthony. The article quotes Anthony as saying, "Write a review, dude, and retaliate the evil review someone just put up on Amazon. Maybe throw a comment telling person how wrong, and they obviously didn't read it." He also asked her to make it look like to her friends that it was all at her request, not at Anthony's request. I can see why. It's a pretty sad, desperate look, Anthony. What's really interesting is that after Stephanie's death, her close friends and family actually started leaking DMs, text messages, voice messages sent between the two. These were all released to a YouTube channel called Stephanie's Legacy. And there's a lot of interesting stuff in here. He definitely made her feel special, saying things like, "You're one of the only people I trust." In March 2017, Stephanie found a lump in her breast. So having worked with Anthony William for a few years at this point, she also developed a relationship with his wife, Rachel. Upon discovery of the lump, Stephanie texted Rachel, where she wrote, "I'm assuming this isn't anything to be worried about and prob just detox related. I noticed a pretty large lump in my left breast today." To which Rachel responded, "Breast lumps can be lymph or node related if you're detoxing, during your cycle, or under the weather, but you should always have it looked at by your physician. Thermography scans are okay to get to if needed. You can give it a week or two and see if it decreases in size or swelling too." Well, hey, at least she recommended that she go get it checked out by a physician. But the thermography scans that she recommended to Stephanie actually have warnings written about by the FDA and the American Cancer Society as a test that's just not a good fit to actually correctly and accurately diagnose cancer. But these people recommend it because it doesn't use radiation. Go figure. Stephanie told Rachel she would just keep an eye on it. Other members of the medical medium community, some of these people who were endorsed by Anthony William himself, suggested that it was just a toxin-filled cyst thanks to EBV. Others told her it would go away on its own, but since it was a flare-up from EBV, it would just take a while. None of these people have any medical education or training, if you haven't guessed that by now, so they're not qualified to be suggesting these kind of things to Stephanie, but anyway. And as we see in just about every alternative medicine holistic health community, people were also telling her that the lump was definitely caused by detoxing, and that it's not dangerous, it's just hormonal. Stephanie let this lump go untreated for months, and between March and July of 2017, she started developing excruciating back pain.
I know you're dealing with all the hurricane stuff. You may not even get a chance to check this message, but my back feels like it's getting worse. Again, the last few days, it's been my lower back kind of lightened up a little, and it's been more my upper, like mid and upper back, mostly the right side under the right shoulder blade. I don't know if it's the spine or just one of the ribs. It just felt like structural. I've been saying this whole time, it doesn't feel like nerve pain, it just feels structural. No, sleeping in general is not a problem. It's just that my body hurts. Like, I wake up, like, wanting to scream and cry. The pain is so hard. It's like sleeping on your arm all night and you get, like, a dead arm feeling. It's kind of like that, but worse. It feels like the bones are breaking or something.
Now this is when she finally decided to reach out to Anthony William personally for help. His response was that she just had shingles, and he could treat it with vitamin C and lysine.
You're dealing with the shingles virus, tried and true, like 100%. I mean, that's the virus that flared up your disc, everything else. I mean, the disc that stayed flared up after you injured it. And then you got sensitive nervous system laying down, plus your nerves are sensitive anyway from the shingles virus. Vagus nerve is going to be extra sensitive because of the shingles virus.
The following voice message is one that Stephanie sent to a friend, retelling her experience and scan by Anthony.
He basically set aside or just any of the serious things because he scanned me and there's like nothing going on with my gallbladder or my pancreas or my like intestines twisting, you know, and with the pancreas it would be like pancreatitis or just something blockage in my gallbladder, and he basically took all those out of the equation. He chalked it down to just being my nerves.
Alongside shingles, Anthony William would just tell her that it was just a slip disc from yoga or Pilates.
Even though it's a slip disc keeping you from getting up, they could start getting all crazy, and it's normal for every family to just be scared. So I know it's a lumbar disc, and it's not the lowest one at the bottom. I think it's the second one above the lowest one, but yeah.
Now, there is some speculation on this particular claim here, because when Anthony disputes this, he says like, oh no, she's the one who told me it was a slip disc from yoga or from doing Pilates or whatever. She told that to me first, when there's really no evidence of that. Maybe it's just been purposely left out, I don't know. So I guess come to your own conclusions on that one. This is one of those he said, she said moments. By the following month, Stephanie couldn't even stand up. because the pain was so severe. She told Anthony that her family and friends knew nothing of the breast lump, and she kept it from them because someone in her family also had breast cancer, and she knew that if her family knew about the lump, that they were going to send her to the hospital and make her get an MRI. And obviously, she was afraid of MRIs because Anthony is writing about it in his books, saying, don't go get an MRI, it's dangerous, radiation is bad. Us regular people who aren't in an actual cult, or anyone who just has any common sense at all, are probably yelling at this YouTube video screen right now, right? If breast cancer runs in your family and you develop a lump in your breast, like, you go get it checked out immediately. Now that's the exact opposite of what Stephanie did. Instead, she and Anthony exchanged voice memos for months, many of which were discussing whether or not she should go get an MRI. And when left to her own devices, she decided against doing that as well. So here are some of the voice messages that they exchanged with each other, where Anthony does sound like he's saying things that are likely to influence her not to get an MRI. He kind of like downplays the urgency to seek medical care, which I think solidified her decision not to go get an MRI.
She wants me to get an MRI, find a DO to do like craniosacral work. The MRI, she wants to get a better look at the disc and see what's going on. And she said that my protocol might not change. She said, but she really just wants to know, like, it's good to know, like, what's going on in there. She said we need more information, especially because it's been consistent for a while. Yeah, there's a few other things there, but I think that's a good overall. I don't want to talk your ear off. Let me know what you think about that.
Well, you might not be able to leave the house for a little while. Might not be happening, and if it's so bad, then, might have to get a stretcher in there and take you to the hospital for an MRI. Meaning, if that's the case. But I wouldn't worry about that right now. I think that, and the craniosacral therapy, just hold that off for now. That's not the number one top priority in the moment. But, yeah, getting you good enough to get an MRI, I'm totally on board with that, I think the chiropractor's probably going to want to see, the disc. But I guess the concern is trying to get, the inflammation down. If the inflammation stays there and it just can't get down, that's keeping the disc, problematic. So it's just a tricky. I know it's tricky.
Stephanie consulted her friends about the MRI situation too.
Yeah, I know. I just don't get when he recommends. And then, like before, he was saying go get an MRI, and now he's saying, like, hell no. Like, I just don't get it at all. It's, like, frustrating.
You can really tell in those voice messages that she's confused by his advice. She doesn't know if she should get an MRI or not because he's not giving her a clear answer. One minute he's saying, let's get you better so we can get you to a hospital and get an MRI. And the next minute he's telling her it's not that urgent and that she shouldn't worry about it. There's a lot of mixed messages there. If Stephanie herself can even claim that she couldn't tell if Anthony wanted her to get an MRI or not, I think it's unfair of Anthony to ever claim that he never told her to not seek medical care. I mean, we'll get to that later because he did release his side of the story. That'll be after all this. But, yeah, he talked about it to her, sure. But he gave her mixed messaging. I mean, who can blame her? By October of 2017, she told Anthony that she was vomiting and that her throat was swelling. Anthony responded by saying he would find a doctor to go to her house and check her out, which she expressed to her friend that she felt uneasy about getting blood work done.
We might have to have a doctor come to the house tomorrow and do blood work. But I'm just thinking, first of all, that freaks me out. Blood work I don't like to do, right? And then a regular doctor, coming to my house, first of all, who does that? Who would even be able to come? I mean, I know there's doctors that can do that, but what is blood work going to tell? What is that going to tell us?
According to the person who published all of these voice notes, they say that Anthony William had previously also expressed negativity towards blood work.
When we get chronically ill, the first thing we do is we go to the doctor and we get some blood work, right? So we might get 5 vials or 7 vials or 10 vials, maybe at the first turn. And then we're still sick, though, because the problem's not solved.
She's also convinced that any diagnostic testing, any medical imaging tests or anything like that were unnecessary because they wouldn't tell her anything that Anthony hasn't already told her. Because, Anthony can see everything. Anthony has the answers to everything. What's the point of getting an MRI? She says that blood work is just a trap to get her into the hospital.
He already sees everything. I just don't get what the point of it is. Maybe it's just a security thing on his end, he's got to tell people to do these regular things. But I don't see how there's any answers in that at all. The doctor's just going to be like, how long have you been dealing with this? 3 weeks you've been throwing up, or 4 weeks on and off? Like, and you haven't gone to the doctor? And you need to go to the hospital. Like, how long has your back been bothering you? You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like it's literally like a trap. Like, it's just going to get me I'm going to fall into the rabbit hole, you know? I was like, I don't really need to do any tests, right? Like, I can just heal on my own at home. And he basically said, yeah, like, it's not going to get you anywhere with the MRI, and, you know, they're just going to see what he sees, and then what? They're going to want to do another test and put me on IVs in the hospital. It's like, all that shit's going to make me go downhill fast.
Anthony also allegedly told her, like, if your throat swells up so bad that you can't breathe, you can go to the emergency room. But then right after that, he reassured her, like, I'm sure it's just stomach acid burning your throat from the vomiting.
He chalked it down to just being my nerves. You know, when I get migraines, on occasion I'll throw up, and he said, you know, not many people who get migraines throw up. He said, so you're just like a throw-up kind of girl. Like, the same nerve that affects you throwing up when you have a migraine is the same nerve that this is being affected. But it's crazy just because I've never had this in my life where I just keep throwing up. That's what he chopped it down to, is just that it's nerve. Basically, it's like, okay, just you're healing, you're on the mend. And that's what I was left with. So it's just like, okay, I guess it's just going to get better. But then literally after that day, my low back started hurting way more. Like, it's terrible right now. I can hardly do anything. And, like, every time I throw up, my dad, like, seems like he's, like, panicking. Like, he just, even though I told him it's my nerves, it's, like, just not enough information. That doesn't mean anything to him because he doesn't understand, you know? And even me, like, I get it, but, like, I can't just keep going about this. Like, I need more support. I need more understanding.
The blood work was to just check sodium levels from vomiting so much. You vomit that much every single day, your system starts to get way out of whack. So it was just to check the basic white count because you're viral. It's not the main problem. You got the shingles causing all the nerves to flare up, and you're laying in bed a lot, and then you're sensitive. You're a sensitive person to begin with, the migraines, the vomiting, so that's how it all comes together. And your vagus nerves being totally affected by all of it, everything and all of it.
Eventually, she started experiencing bleeding from her nipple. He even tried to compare her back pain to a time where he had back spasms sometime in his life, which, you know, obviously they were not the same thing.
I get it. I mean, I had spasms where I, you know, couldn't even sit up, you know? Yeah, I couldn't sit up. It was just so bad. Spasm days are usually like this, where they don't last. Okay, here's the deal. Maybe it won't last like this. You just have a day of spasms. I had a day of spasms. Sometimes 2 on and off. But it would be more like a day. So it doesn't have to always be like this. We just got to kind of hang there and ride this out.
Same thing I said was, you know, God, this is horrible. Meanwhile, you know, then I was dealing with the spasms. You're laying on your back on the bed. Keep that right leg out and straight. But that's what I did. Same disc, same spot, same right leg. Same right side. Yeah, I'm bringing it up to let you know that there is hope, because I am walking around, you know, and most likely with you. I got better and put it behind me. And know that I'm with you, okay? I'll send you lots of light. You know that I love you. And I'll send you lots of light. And keep a light heart the best you can. And, you know, I'm with you, man. I'm with you, okay? And I love you a lot. And you know that. And I'll send you some light and some energy. I'll throw some energy in there from the source and keep some energy going over there. Okay, and some light, all right? I went through every bit of this. There's not one thing I didn't go through with this so far that you're going through. Went through every bit of it.
Throughout this whole time, however, it is important to note that Anthony never expressly told her, do not go see a doctor. In that last voice note, he did say that her back pain would get better. She just had to ride it out, and then tried to relate his back issues to what she was experiencing and kind of brushed it off like, look at me, I'm fine. But clearly, no one that she was consulting thought that it was anything serious at all at this point. He even started recommending that she go to get blood work, but not for diagnostic purposes, but just so that her family would feel better about it.
And I think your family really, you know, needs just to see you get at least a little support. Meaning, not just all the phantom people on the phone that are, of course, your family. Like, me, and everything, your family might, you know, they might get some relief, and that could help too, because, you know, your dad's worked really hard to watch over you, your mom loves you and cares about you, your brother's probably worried because you've been in bed so long because of your slip disc, and everybody loses. They could lose perspective over time. Even though it's a slip disc keeping you from getting up, they could start getting all crazy, and it's normal for every family to just be scared. So it could be helpful there too. You know what I mean?
And regarding the bleeding nipple, he did say, don't be afraid to seek help from a doctor. Not very urgent of him, but at least he said that. But even this message caused Stephanie to be confused with what she should do. She asks for clarification from him, and she even expresses that everything she's doing is based on his recommendations.
So I just have a question. I feel like really confused. Are you saying I should do it just because of other people's concerns and it makes people feel better to get it? Because if it's unnecessary, I don't want to waste my time doing it, because I'm trusting in you to tell me what I need to do. I don't really care what all these other people say, honestly. I mean, one of those other chiropractors heard about my situation. She's like, she just needs to go to the hospital. They're like bringing back more worry into me, and I don't want to do that unless you honestly agree that that is necessary. So please let me know. Can you talk to Spirit? I want to hear from you what you can see, because it's just scary getting all these different opinions, and then when I ask you, you always just say, okay, yeah, that sounds good. But is that just because you want everyone to feel happy and content knowing I'm getting tests, or is that because you really believe and know that I legitimately need those tests? I just feel so lost with this.
For an average person, that would definitely be a lot of pressure, but the average person doesn't have a spirit speaking health advice into your ear all the time, you know? The average person has not built their life upon giving other people medical advice from a alleged spirit. So to anyone saying, you know, oh, that's probably a lot of unfair pressure to put on him, it's like, that's what he does. Like, that's his life. That's his livelihood. The issue is that he really is, like, incredibly esteemed in this circle of wellness gurus, and Stephanie was a true believer of his. And this kind of thing happens with cults that have charismatic leaders. If he says it's shingles, then it's most definitely shingles, right? Because if it wasn't shingles, then the spirit would tell him what it actually is, and then he would tell me, right? The vomiting is just because my back hurts, right? My throat swelling is just because the stomach acid from when I was vomiting, right? You know, these kind of things individually wouldn't be deemed necessary to constitute an ER visit. At least in America, anyway. Our healthcare in this country is terrible. We will purposely put off going to seek medical care if and when possible. And Stephanie did not have medical insurance because she didn't believe in doctors. So why go to an ER when you have a medium who's a close contact of yours who has a spirit, and that spirit knows what foods will heal you, and Anthony can just diagnose you by waving his arms everywhere. You know, why go to an ER if you have that? As I've mentioned before, she was also in the inner circles of people who were also in contact with Anthony William, and they were all backing up her concerns that doctors couldn't help her because Anthony knows all. He's the most accurate, and doctors will only want her to get admitted to the hospital and have real help. So she was surrounded by people who were yes men to her. These friends also encouraged her to shut down any advice she gets that doesn't support her narrative and Anthony's diagnosis. She says she's confident in what information Anthony has given her, and she knows what she needs to do. There's texts that have been leaked by her family and friends trying to get her to seek medical care, but she shuts them down. In a recorded conversation between Stephanie and her brother, you can hear that he's trying to convince her to get tests locally now so that they can have an idea of what's going on before they take a trip across the country to attend an integrative health center that she wanted to go to called Sanaviv, which is a center located about 20 miles south of the border in Mexico. The pushback that you can hear her give him is pretty heartbreaking. Like, she truly believes that any diagnostic tests will cause even more harm to her. And her poor brother, being the voice of reason here, sounds just exasperated. Like, you know that they've had many conversations like this.
I've been all for Sanaviv. I'm the one who called Sanaviv. I'm filling out the application, I'm giving all your medical records. I told mom and dad about it.
You're not for it anymore?
No, I'm still for it, but I'm for the test right now. So we can, like Dad said, we can give those to Sanaviv. We know what's going on.
But what if that hurts me?
I think more so it's going to hurt you not knowing exactly what's going on. That's going to hurt you more, in my opinion.
Why do you believe that just those tests are going to just tell you the truth? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, where's your trust in every little thing? Like, how do you just trust all that?
Because I've seen how long you've been suffering.
Another thing, it's going to show, oh yeah, I have a lesion in my brain, and they're going to treat it like cancer, and they're going to want to radiate it. I trust Andy that it's more like an MS symptom. MS isn't even MS. MS is epstein-barr, just like cancer is. I also need to treat myself properly.
For instance,
It's all viral.
Thankfully, eventually, she did seek some medical help, and she got an x-ray of her back, which came back showing that she had a compression fracture. I'm sure we can all see where this is going. She told Anthony, "My goal and vision is that spirit in yourself will read and scan me, and will put me on a perfect protocol, and my breast will heal itself with nothing invasive." Her text actually went unanswered by Anthony William from that point on, but she still continued to seek advice from the medical medium community. Meanwhile, friends and family who accompanied Stephanie to her doctor's appointments would record conversations with their doctor so they could refer back to them later. In one recording, the doctor expressed his extreme concern with how over the past few months, chiropractors were supposedly coming to her home to work on her instead of them bringing her to a hospital, as well as his concern with seeking care from someone like Anthony William.
She had a couple chiropractors come to the house, and they said it was the Vegas nerve.
Vegas now.
Okay.
Why were chiropractors coming to the house?
Well, she couldn't get out of the house. She basically, because she didn't want to move because she was concerned
She couldn't get in the car.
further injury in her back.
So up until June of 2018, you were normal.
Yep.
Since then, you've been having a lot of issues.
Yep.
Nothing yoga or Pilates. In my low back, I was told that I had a couple different vertebrae out.
Who told you all this?
Well, to be honest, I work for a medium.
For who?
Medium.
What is he?
For medium.
Which is what?
He thinks it's
More
spirits
like
talk to him.
And she had an MRI of her back?
X-ray.
Not an MRI.
No.
What's going on with your back?
We don't know.
You've been having pain in your back?
Yeah, but according to everything, he's telling me he said that it will heal because it was viral.
It's not viral, so I'm not certain of what anybody's been telling her. But you've been having pain in your back for how long?
Since June.
Yeah.
So low back pain since June.
But it got bad in July.
Got bad in July.
Immobile because.
Immobile. So you've been immobile for all these months now?
Oh yeah, she's been in bed all.
So you've been in bed for since July?
Yep.
Why?
Because she's concerned about moving.
Can she get an MRI?
Well,
Can she?
Yeah.
With contrast?
Without contrast. So nobody's evaluated what's going on at her back.
no,
Who's been treating this back problem?
just she had chiropractors coming to the house. She had.
Treated by chiropractors at her house.
Yeah, she had massage people coming to the house.
Let me explain to you at least what I see, okay, in a report. They talk about a pathological fracture, a moderate L5 compression fracture concerning for pathological disease,
What is that?
meaning that a fracture that's caused by something else, like if she were to have breast cancer or whatever cancer, and it's eroding the bone, okay? And that's why, I don't know, look, I'm just trying to get information here. The only way to know is to get additional imaging studies. But if she's 37 and has a pathological fracture of L5 and can't walk, okay?
That tells you something
Right.
right there.
Yeah. The question is, why is it taking 6 months, 5 months?
Because she was listening to this.
By December of 2017, the family had finally found out about the breast lump, and they made her go to a hospital for a biopsy. While awaiting the results, she began having seizures, which ended up having her hospitalized and put in a medically induced coma for 3 days. And when she awoke, the doctors told her that she would never walk again because her spine had been so eroded due to stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. Stage 4, if you didn't know, is end-stage cancer, and it's usually diagnosed when the cancer has spread from its originating spot to other parts of the body. In another recorded conversation between Stephanie, her family, and one of the doctors, he tells her straight up how serious the situation is. Like, he doesn't sugarcoat anything. You can also hear Stephanie's brother trying to mediate the conversation, and you can hear the disappointment in the doctor's voice when she tells him she hadn't even started taking the medication that the doctor told her to start taking because she didn't want to jump into anything.
So much cancer that if you don't do anything, the game's up. Multiple lesions throughout your entire spine. Okay, so thoracic, lumbar, sacral, sternum, breastbone, both scapula, shoulder bones, both arms, both legs, both pelvis. Okay, and you have multiple fractures of the spine. You have more bones with cancer than bones without cancer. Okay, so we got a CEA, which is usually a blood test that's not that elevated in breast cancer. Okay, was 1,200. Normal is 3.
What's 1,200? CEA?
CEA.
What's that?
That's a cancer marker. That's really, really high. Okay, it's really high. I rarely see values over 1,000. If you don't kill the cancer will kill her first. Okay, so it's not like you got a lot of time. You're getting the hormones. Okay.
What are the hormones? What is that?
I didn't start.
So you didn't take it last night?
No.
You refused it?
I didn't start it yet.
Okay. So they offered it to you, but you didn't take it. Is that what it is? Is that what you're telling me? Because I ordered it for you. The nurse would have brought it to you.
Well, I didn't start anything. I didn't want to just jump in there.
Okay. You know, that's really something that you really got nothing to lose. And it takes time to work, so that's why I was suggesting at least you get it started. Cancer is an exponential phase of growth. Okay? If you don't do something about it, it's just going to take over your body. Well, it already has.
Anthony William was still ghosting her at this point, despite repeated attempts to reach him, and asking others in the medical medium community to try to get in touch with him on her behalf. Stephanie did have a recorded phone call or some sort of conversation with a mutual contact between her and Anthony, and this contact was claiming to be passing along messages that Anthony was getting from Spirit, and the contact basically says that Anthony thinks the doctors are wrong. He admits, oh yeah, she does have breast cancer, but like all the other stuff isn't cancer related, it's viral. He said that the doctors are likely to give her a diagnosis of MS. Is that multiple sclerosis? I'm pretty sure. Because the doctors are just too stupid and uneducated. They wouldn't be able to see that it's actually a virus that she's suffering with. And it's not as serious as the doctors are trying to make it out to be, but they're gonna give her an MS diagnosis. And he reassures her like, oh, it's just because they don't know. But that's what it's gonna come back as. It didn't come back as that. He also suggests that she does postpone the tests that the doctors are recommending. The contact's voice that you're about to hear was disguised when it was released for privacy sake, I guess. So that's why it sounds funny. I didn't do that.
He said it's much safer bet to hold off on the procedures tomorrow.
Did he seem to agree with everything thus far about like there being cancer in my breast, about there being lesions in my brain and wherever else? I don't. My back, maybe liver.
He doesn't agree with what they're saying. He agrees you have some lesions through your body that are viral, but they're not the cancer. The breast is a cancer, but it's just your breast. He said if anything they should be telling you that only that you have breast cancer and something like an MS diagnosis, not because you actually have MS, but just because it's viral. And again, you know how it works, Steph, those labels aren't correct.
Right.
He said that's what probably should have told you from their knowledge of your symptoms, not the other things they've told you. He's saying that it's not like what they're saying. There's a lot of things that have gone wrong with that. So it's not as bad as they're saying it is.
And what they're seeing in my brain, like you said, the lesions and stuff, that's more like what we would refer to as MS.
Yeah, but it is a viral condition that's unrelated to your breasts. So he said you're very viral. Generally speaking, in the medical system, if they see a lesion, they assume it's cancer.
The test they wanted me to do tomorrow, he thinks I should do, but just not till a little bit later.
I don't think so, but for now he just said to postpone.
go through what you've gone through, it'd be best just to postpone it for now. And, you know, we've got a journey ahead, but I truly believe that you're going to come out of this and you'll be so stronger.
Months would go by without any word from Anthony William. Stephanie did, however, contact his wife Rachel and sent her a heartbreaking voice message as her condition over the past few months had continued to deteriorate.
Hey, it's Steph. I just been thinking about you a lot, and I thought, let me reach out and say hello and let you know I'm just grateful for all your prayers you've been sending my way. I really appreciate that. It means so much, you know, every single prayer, especially from specific people like yourself, so thank you. I'm still dealing with all this breast cancer crap, and they wanted to do this surgery on my back, well, or more like a procedure on my back, and the day that they were going to do it, they canceled it because they saw that I had a UTI. It kept me from getting the surgery, and literally, like, within a week or two after that, it had to have been that, something like that timeline. All my pain has pretty much gone away, and it's, like, super mild now, and I'm hoping that this is showing me that it's healed, that it's not just calmed down, you know. So I thought that was good news to share with you. They had me on some new, like, breast cancer medication that a side effect is getting a blood transfusion, so I had to do that yesterday, which I did not really wasn't happy about that. So I hope you're doing well. How are you? Well, I guess that's enough to say for now. Okay. I just wanted to let you know that I love you and thank you for everything. I hope I heal and everything goes well, which I'm really praying every day that I'm going to heal and that I get to see you guys again.
Rachel responded thanking Stephanie for the update, but Anthony himself never reached out to her. And by November 2018, Stephanie Tisone was dead. She was only 38 years old. 5 days before her death, she allegedly texted a friend, and this friend had also been in touch with Anthony, and she said, "I don't want to die. Can you please talk to Anthony for me? Maybe he will have a solution or something." Until the bitter end, she was holding out for Anthony William to show up and cure her, give her the answers. He never did. And friends of Stephanie say that his sudden absence was hurtful and confusing to her. In my opinion, it just kind of looks like Anthony William realized that she was in like really deep medical trouble and decided to ghost her to distance himself from it so that he couldn't be implicated because she was very clearly dying. The followers of the medical medium actually ended up responding to so much of the criticism after her death, saying that, oh, anyone who's a critic is just a paid troll, and they were hired by huge corporations to take down the medical medium because they're just so threatened by his truth. Others would say, hey, Stephanie wasn't even a client of his. She wasn't under his care. She was just a friend, and she wasn't even paying for consultations anymore. Clearly, though, as we know, she was obviously much more than just some like acquaintance or former worker to him. She was intertwined into his world for a while. She had personal experiences with him. He took her on the journey of a lifetime, visiting celebrities' homes and being the VIP of speaking engagements and events. When he bought a new house, she ended up going to that house and setting it up for him and his wife before they moved in. She was trusted, you know? She believed that he had perfect information about her health. Perfect information that doctors weren't able to see. And while of course you can say that Stephanie's decision not to seek traditional cancer treatment was hers and hers alone to make, sure. But to me, it just speaks to the dangers of the alternative medicine industry, because that decision of hers really truly was very ill-informed, in my opinion. In his final text to her, Anthony William allegedly told her like, hey man, you should seek out a doc for your bloody boob. But for months she went unchecked. She didn't take that part of his advice seriously. And once her family found out about it, that's when she finally went to go get a biopsy, which is how the cancer was finally confirmed. Someone who has spent most of their adult life avoiding modern medicine, reading health and wellness blogs, and becoming connected to other big names in the pseudoscience world, someone like that truly believes the stuff that Anthony William was saying. And in my opinion, that's what really led to Stephanie's death. Maybe not just Anthony William, just all of these people she was listening to, even before she got into medical medium, like whatever books she was reading then, whatever blogs she was interested in then, whatever content she was consuming at that point. All of those people, I personally believe, played a hand in what happened to Stephanie. And those same people also play a hand in what happened to Jessie Lee Ward, like we've talked about extensively on this channel. People who end up being diagnosed with serious forms of cancer and then refusing to do anything about it out of fear of modern medicine or some kind of belief that it's not good for you and it's not going to help you, that nature is the only way to cure things, and it's just dangerous. It's a really dangerous rhetoric. And I personally don't see an issue with alternative medicine if it is used in conjunction with an actual respectable doctor's treatment, not in replacement of it. The moment you start denying science and the medicine that it is created is the moment when you're in serious danger. And unfortunately, millions of people around the world have fallen for it. And too many people have died thanks to the alternative medicine industry. And I'll admit that medical malpractice does exist in modern medicine, sure. But like, respectable doctors aren't out here committing it on purpose. They have too much to lose, like their license and their livelihood. Sure, maybe you're skeptical of big pharma because, oh my god, have you seen the profits they make? Well, that's silly to me because the alternative medicine and wellness industry makes billions of dollars a year too. If your distrust comes from people making money, the alternative medicine industry is no better. And it's certainly not more effective than science-based, evidence-based medical treatment. And I also admit that there are some homeopathic remedies that have scientific backing, and maybe they're effective for very specific things. There are thousands more of remedies like that that are entirely ineffective, and they're just a cash grab. I really think there needs to be something done about people like Anthony William and like Dr. Oz, Chris Beat Cancer, and so many other health and wellness influencers. What these people do is dangerous, and it leads to people's deaths. Anthony William was silent about his side of the story for a long time, until the Vanity Fair article finally came out, and that's when he felt like he had no other option than to address it. So he released a podcast episode called Stephanie Tisone, The Untold Story, where Anthony begins the episode basically saying that this whole thing was just a witch hunt by haters, and those people are just desperate to take down the medical medium.
We're talking about my friend Stephanie and the false story, the group of plotters and rivals we've been discussing, fed to a media outlet with ulterior motives and trashed Steph's own legacy and her own reputation in the process. The head plotter fed a false story to the medical medium community years ago, filled with misinformation. As the years went by, I took the hits from Steph's death. I reserved and preserved information and facts out of respect for Steph's memory and the family, and released another false story that this time was fed to the mainstream media, and now it's time for the real story to break.
This podcast episode is really interesting to me, since they so desperately want to say that they're presenting evidence. Since when does Anthony care about evidence, dude? His entire career is spent spouting medical claims that have no scientific backing at all. But now that he's being held accountable for his part in a woman not seeking immediate medical care when it was absolutely necessary, now suddenly, like, evidence is important to you? It wasn't important when Stephanie was sick, but now that you're being criticized for your involvement in this, now suddenly evidence is important? Like, all right, Anthony. So much of this podcast is just irrelevant stuff and like red herrings and other logical fallacies. They focus on the most random things to try to prove a point, and then the points that they're proving don't actually like disprove anything that the article said. A lot of it is just arguing semantics and conjecture, and it's just incredibly unfair to Stephanie because she is no longer here to defend herself or tell her side of things. I encourage you to listen to his podcast episode in full just before you come to your own conclusions, because it's important to hear all sides of every story when possible. But in my opinion, it's all moot. He makes a lot of claims and pushes the narrative that the Vanity Fair article was just a complete lie. Unfortunately for Anthony, Stephanie's family and friends released all of those voice notes and texts between them to prove that Anthony William was manipulating the situation to fit his narrative, in my opinion. Like when Anthony says that he definitely told her to go see a doctor.
As you will learn in this episode, I told Steph to see a doctor at the beginning, the middle, and the end, at all times.
Yeah, Anthony, we saw the text. You half-assed it so good to the point where it was confusing to her. Saying, don't be afraid to see your doctor, and then in the next breath being like, oh, it's not that severe of a situation. Like, you can write it out. Telling her it isn't urgent, and then making her believe that if she went to the doctor, they wouldn't be able to find out anything new anyway, and it would just expose her to more radiation than she needs to be exposed to because she's got Anthony, the medical medium, who can diagnose her just by waving his arms around and talking to her over the phone, and the spirit's gonna tell him exactly what's wrong with her, so she doesn't need a doctor. By doing all of those things, it hardly sounds like getting her to see a doctor was his top priority. Anthony, you sent her mixed messages. You confused her, and you knew that she had an unwavering trust and belief in your so-called ability above anything else. And just so we're aware, when they mention a doctor at all in this podcast, they're almost always referring to a chiropractor or like a naturopathic doctor or something like that. Most specifically a chiropractor, you know, someone who's not actually qualified to be diagnosing Stephanie Tisone. The constant references to a chiropractor tells me that they're just referring strictly to her back pain and not, you know, the lump in her breast. Or, you know, blood coming out of her nipple, or the fact that this is concerning because there's a history of breast cancer in her family. Like, so much of this was just like, oh, your back pain. What about the boob, dude? Like, he doesn't really address it at all because there's not really any instances of him being like, oh, you have a breast lump, definitely go see an oncologist. That, like, just doesn't exist. So even when Anthony says, like, I was under the impression that she was seeing a doctor, like, he's not referring to an actual respectable physician. He's talking about a chiropractor. And if you remember from earlier in this video when I was playing recordings of Stephanie having conversations with doctors, which is when they told that first doctor guy that she was seeking in-home chiropractic care to deal with all of this, he had a very negative reaction to it. Anthony was totally fine with her being seen by a chiropractor, but despite him making it sound like he thought that she was getting real legitimate care, like I see no evidence of him ever suggesting it was cancer or telling her to see an oncologist before the diagnosis. As we know, Anthony William has published in his books that MRIs are dangerous, and his voice messages to Stephanie suggest that the time has not come for her to be exposing herself to diagnostic imaging and radiation. One of the points that they harp on a lot in the early part of this podcast is how Stephanie couldn't have possibly been the ultimate medical medium devotee because she was on a raw food health journey on her own since 2005. Well, yeah, dude. Don't try to pretend that people like her aren't in your target demographic. But their evidence for her not strictly following the medical medium's teachings is because she did some 40-day grape fast back in 2015, and Anthony's like, oh, that's not something I would ever recommend. See, she was clearly listening to someone else, not just me. Again, though, like, we've seen her text, we heard her voice messages. She was incredibly devoted. A grape fast doesn't negate that fact. Plus, the breast lump happened 2 years after that grape fast, so she had 2 years to become more deeply involved in medical medium in the community during that time. At around the 22-minute mark of the podcast, Anthony literally lies by omission. He starts reading out some of the texts that I've shown you before earlier in this video, but he strategically leaves out one of the most incredibly important parts of the text. Here is exactly how he presents his information.
She texted Anthony's wife about it, saying, quote, sorry about all my messages. I've been aware of that and don't want to overstep any boundaries. I'm assuming this isn't anything to be worried about and probably just detox related. I noticed a pretty large lump in my left breast today, right below and to the right of the nipple. And Anthony's wife replied saying, quote, breast lumps can be lymph or node related if you're detoxing during your cycle or under the weather, but you should always have it looked at by your physician. Thermography scans are okay to get to if needed. Stephanie replies, thanks, yes, feels like detox, and I will do that and observe it over the next week or two. I've done thermography in the past, so I am familiar with that, so I'll just keep an eye on it.
We told Stephanie you should always have it looked at by your physician. And always means always. and not just a physician, but your physician. Stephanie replied, I will do that and observe it. This was Stephanie confirming she will go to her physician.
Now here's the actual screenshot of the conversation. So Anthony cut out the text where his wife Rachel tells Stephanie to just wait a week or two to see if the swelling goes away. The reality of the situation seems to be that when Stephanie said, I will do that, she was responding to Rachel's last message to her, where she tells her to wait it out. She's not confirming, I will do that as in, I will go see a doctor. She's responding to the last message that he cut out. We've heard her express fear of diagnostic tests already in this video, so I would highly doubt that Stephanie's response confirmed what Anthony said it did, considering that he left the most important part of the text conversation out. Like, that's context that he was just like, that can go. No. The one thing that the Vanity Fair article and like all of the leaked voice notes and texts and stuff, what they have going for them is that they're not leaving things out. Anthony didn't give this podcast episode that same courtesy. Anthony also likes to make himself out to seem like some kind of hero to Stephanie, saying that he only gave her jobs to help with her finances because she was just having such a hard time financially. He makes it sound like it was just like so inappropriate for her to be texting him while they were moving, but like he seemed totally unbothered by all the texts and voice messages she was sending him during that same time about the move. Stephanie even apologizes to Rachel at one point for bugging them, and Rachel responds with, bug away.
We gave Stephanie the temporary work to help her financially because Stephanie said she was financially struggling.
AW and his wife were clear even before the move and tried to set a boundary that they wouldn't be able to answer health questions because of what was going on. Here is the direct text. It says, quote, I wanted to give you a heads up that Aunt and I won't be able to answer health-related questions for the next month or so. All our energy will need to be on this move, so we will be out of commission in that sense until we have everything settled in. Hopefully by the end of April or early May. Despite all of that and the boundary that was set, Stephanie continued to ask health questions. On the day that AW and his wife saw Stephanie briefly before she headed back home, she was asking some health questions, and AW and his wife both asked Stephanie if she had seen a doctor for the breast lump.
She communicates with Anthony a lot during this time through voice notes. So like all of that's totally fine, but God forbid she ask Anthony William to just ask a quick question to Spirit for her. Spirit is allegedly already whispering into his ear at all times of the day. So like how much of an inconvenience would it be for Anthony for one moment to be like, oh, by the way, Spirit, what's up with Stephanie? You know? Plus, like, he's the medical medium. What do you expect her to ask you? Like, anyway. The narrative that Anthony William is pushing here is kind of just like, they were just like odd jobs here and there. She was never a full-time employee, which, you know, I guess is true. But, like, that makes it sound like, oh, we didn't even work together that much. Like, we weren't even that close. When we obviously know that's not the truth. Stephanie was pretty much the only person that Anthony trusted enough at this time to let her know where he was moving to. Letting someone into your house to set up your belongings and, you know, get plumbing and electricity and stuff all sorted out on behalf of you while you're in the middle of making your way there, to have that all set up for you before you even get there, like, that's not a job you give just anyone. But that is a job that you give to someone that you can trust. He couldn't have just anyone do that for him. Anthony also stands firm on the statement that he didn't diagnose her with shingles, but what really happened is that Stephanie developed a rash, and then she sent him a text and asked him if it could be shingles, and he responded by saying it was baby shingles, and he even suggested it was also causing her back pain. In the podcast, Anthony claims that the shingles thing was a diagnosis that she got from a doctor, but nowhere in the text that she sent to Anthony does she mention that she saw a doctor for it at all. Sure, she brought up shingles first in the conversation, but Anthony could have responded with, I don't know what that is, see a doctor. Instead, he just like confirmed her suspicions and took it even farther by attributing it to her back pain as well. At around the 47-minute mark of his podcast episode, Anthony lies by omission again by cutting important parts out of a voice memo that he had sent her. So here's what he published in the podcast.
At this point, Stephanie is saying she got stuck on the floor and couldn't get up. Clearly, AW was the one who was telling her to go to the doctor, etc. He did not tell her to lie flat on the floor. She got stuck on the floor because of her back issues. AW responded with,
well, you know, you might not be able to leave the house for a little while. You know, might not be happening. And if it's, you know, so bad, then, you know, we have to get a stretcher in there and take you to the hospital for an MRI. But yeah, getting you good enough to get an MRI, I'm totally on board with that.
And here is the unedited clip.
Well, you might not be able to leave the house for a little while. Might not be happening, and if it's so bad, then might have to get a stretcher in there and take you to the hospital for an MRI. Meaning, if that's the case, but I wouldn't worry about that right now. I think that, and the cranial psychotherapy, just hold that off for now. That's not the number one top priority in the moment, but yeah, getting you good enough to get an MRI, I'm totally on board with that.
Notice how he suggests that getting an MRI is not an urgent need. He tells her not to worry about it. And then he also says that the cranial sacral therapy that her doctor recommended, her doctor being a chiropractor, but what else can we expect from these people? But Anthony tells her to hold out on that as well, even though her doctor told her to do that. Well, Anthony's always out here like, oh, I would never tell someone not to do what their doctor recommends, but we literally have a voice memo of him saying that doctor told you to do that. Oh, excuse me, doctor told you to do that. Well, it's not necessary. You don't need to do that. We literally have proof of him doing that, even though he says he never does that. So, okay. He conveniently left all of those parts out of the audio clip he put in his podcast. And he leaves in plenty of clips of him speaking the words, or I guess the acronym, MRI, but he leaves out the most contextually important parts of those conversations. And those parts that he cut out are the parts that cause Stephanie to be confused. Like him saying that the situation is tricky. I guess Spirit isn't that accurate then, huh? Doctors supposedly consult him for help on all of their most confusing cases, things that are just medical mysteries that they have no idea how to solve. Allegedly, Anthony says that he is consulted by people like that often. Meanwhile, Spirit can't even figure out that her spine was being eroded by stage 4 cancer. He couldn't tell Anthony that her spine was growing tumors all over the place. He couldn't tell Stephanie that the breast lump was definitely breast cancer. I mean, come on, dude. The podcast episode is just so obviously trying to control the narrative, and lying by omission seems to be Anthony Williams' favorite form of manipulation here. They also spend a lot of time talking about an objectively nice deed that Anthony did for Stephanie. So they bought her a new mattress and a bed frame and new sheets and blankets and stuff to help alleviate her back pain. That's a very nice thing of them to do. When I say them, I mean Anthony and Rachel. But basking in the glow of his good deeds just simply isn't enough for Anthony. He actually claims that this good deed is the reason why she was able to get up and go get an MRI, go get imaging done, because the mattress made her well enough to be able to actually get up and go get tested. While I'm sure that was helpful, I'm not gonna deny that a comfortable mattress is gonna be better than what she claimed she was sleeping on before. We also know that once her family learned about the lump, that's when she actually went and got medical care. But Anthony takes credit for that, which I feel like is extremely self-serving, and it really does nothing to honor the memory of Stephanie. I mean, really, do you expect us to hear this story and then also at the same time believe you when you say that you weren't really that close? You weren't as close as the Vanity Fair article made it out to seem like you were? Or do you just go around buying beds for all of your followers, Anthony? She wasn't that special. I buy beds for everybody. No. Again, it was a nice gesture, but clearly, there was a relationship there. And in the podcast, I feel like he just really plays it down. One thing he doesn't play down, however, is how good and kind of a person he says he is. Because she was in such a dire situation and no one would help her, but he did because he's such a great guy. One final lie by omission that Anthony commits in this podcast is how he claims that Stephanie never reached out to him ever again after she had been diagnosed with cancer. Now, records do show that he was ghosting her before she was diagnosed with cancer, but we also have proof of the audio message I played for you earlier that she sent to Rachel, his wife. And then Rachel responds thanking her for the update. So we know she got it, we know she heard it. She had to have told Anthony about it. So Anthony must have been aware of this message. He had to be aware of this message. And then he could have reached out personally. And that aside, if you love her and care about her the way that you say you do, Anthony, why Why did you have to be the one to wait for her to reach out to you? At a certain point, he knew she had a very serious medical diagnosis. How hard would it have been to send her a text checking up on her? If that's your friend, how hard is it to be like, how are you doing? He acts like communication is a one-way street. And that's really unfair to say when it comes to someone who's going through like intense cancer treatments. His excuse for this is that someone in Stephanie's family actually took some kind of action that made it so that he couldn't reach out to her anymore. He couldn't communicate with her anymore. And that if he reached out to her, the number he had from her, he didn't know who he'd be talking to. He was expecting that maybe someone in her family would answer the text and then there would be a confrontation and blah, blah, blah. But if you remember, Stephanie was communicating with a mutual contact after the cancer diagnosis, where the contact was relaying information from Anthony back to her. So like, he knew how to reach her. He knew it was possible to do so. He knew that she was contactable. But of course, he conveniently left that part out of the podcast as well. In my opinion, after listening to the podcast, I think it's fair to say that, you know, maybe Anthony William didn't know the extent and like the severity of Stephanie's actual condition before all the tests and stuff, since he wasn't actually there to see her. But in my opinion, he still acted incredibly irresponsibly in this situation. Like I said, there's just kind of a lot of he said, she said stuff going back and forth between all of them. And without Stephanie here to give her side of the story, we'll never know why Stephanie acted the way she did or why she made decisions that she did. What I really think this was a parasocial relationship. And Anthony fed into it for sure. She had full trust and full belief in his ability, and he knew that. However, despite knowing that, Stephanie was far more committed to the relationship with Anthony than he was. And when you have a platform as massive as someone like Anthony William, and honestly, the undeserved credibility he also has, the undeserved prestige among high-profile celebrities that he has, like the way mainstream media platforms him, like you have to wield your power carefully. And when I say power, I don't mean like the ability that he claims he has, like a power to scan and diagnose people and talk to spirits. Like, I'm not talking about that because I don't believe he has that, obviously. I mean the actual power dynamics between him and people he has relationships with in his life. He has people eating out of the palm of his hand. Sick people, like chronically ill and in pain people, are eating out of the palm of Anthony Williams' hand, and that gives him a sort of control over people. It really does. If he came out tomorrow and said, bananas are the way of the future, they're the most healthy thing on the planet, they will cure everything that you ever, like, it's the bananas, guys. Bananas are gonna sell out of every grocery store. There's gonna be a banana shortage. He has the power to do something like that. That's what I'm talking about. So, I mean, he offers people hope of relief from their chronic pain and their chronic illnesses. And so many people who suffer from those things are just desperate to resolve their ailments. He should have known better, is basically what I'm trying to say. Since Stephanie's death happened years ago at this point, interest in this case has died down, and Anthony William has gone on to cling to success and fame. His response to allegations that he's some kind of cult leader were along the lines of him saying, you can come and go as you please, which you can't do in a cult. I mean, that's completely disregarding that he literally is a charismatic leader. And the reason that people don't leave is because he has an established reputation with his name on so many celebrities' lips. And people believe him. Still crazy to me to this very moment that people actually believe this guy has a spirit that talks to him and tells him what food can cure this and that, and it's just absurd. But anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. Before we end this video, I just want to once again thank Lumi for sponsoring this video. Guys, don't forget to click the link down in the description of this video or in the pinned comment, and then use the code SAV5 to get an extra $5 off your starter pack with Lumi. So thank you, Lumi, and then thank you for any of you guys who go try it out. I think you'll really like it. And now it's time for me to thank my patrons and my members, you guys. The list of names we're about to read off here are my financial supporters. They get access to things like our private Discord server, we have a postcard club, and sometimes even more than that. So if any of that sounds good to you, you can go to patreon.com/SavannahMarie, or you can click the join button beneath this video to join my YouTube memberships. Just whatever you want to do works for me. So with that, the biggest thank you in the whole wide world goes to Hula Chowdown, Jacqueline Nutton, Kessie Drew, KJ Barnes, Leanne, Sarah Simi, Caroline Reed, Daniel Urena, Maddie Darley, Ray, Just Mark, Martine Hubert, Love to Be Evil, Amber Price, Baby Pink Pearl, Alice Wagner, LaSalle Story, Mother Dragon 82, Fallon Lowry, Hannah, Jessica Billhart, Emion, and Auntie Lou. And to the rest of my financial supporters, thank you so much for being here and being you. And even if you're not a financial supporter, thanks for making it to the end of this video. I just really appreciate you being here because YouTube loves watch time and it helps more people see my videos. So thank you. With that, friends, I will see you in the next one. Bye.